think the promotion of the film comes down to a number of factors, and yeah, the trailer's really important because it gives away, without giving away too much, like what the film is about, and that's really what gets people in. But I think for it, something that really stood out as like a really good way of promoting their film was in America they had red balloons tied to the drains, so linking to the story of the film, and that made people think of the advertising campaigns as being very clever, and thinking, oh, that must mean that the film's quite clever, and that it's going to be, not only is it like an older story brought back, but it's going to have something new and unique about it.
Yeah, as well as that campaign as well in America, it's sort of spread to other countries and places, purely because in cinemas, like, it's had an effect on the target audience, that they wanted to go into a cinema to watch the film with a red balloon and dress up as a clown and kind of scare other people around them just to think like it's real life, and I think that's been a good impact.
I think as far as trailers go to promote films, I think they're really effective because most of the trailers I see are on social media such as Facebook, and all your friends can just share them. And then also some films release teaser trailers, and I think that Star Wars 7 did planned their teaser trailers really well, because they released little bits, and it was quite interesting because they had a female character as sort of the lead, so every time a new teaser trailer was released, that would get such a big viral buzz, and I think also because they had such a big fan base, that helped as well.
I know that the trailer, when it came out on the day, it was #1 trending on the YouTube trending page, which is how I initially saw it. And then when I went on my Facebook after that, I just saw the film poster everywhere on all social media, and that's how it really drew my attention to it.
It depends on what genre the film is, but if we're talking horror films, a lot of people do see the trailers, and that's what really interests them, because I know that sometimes I'll just go to the cinema just because that's something I want to do that day, or like I've heard of a film and it sounds good. But with horror films, I think the majority of people go to see it because they've seen the trailer and they're really excited to see it. And if you're going to see a horror film anyway, and you've heard of it, you usually watch the trailer beforehand anyway, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
So I think that for horror films it'd be quite a high percentage.
I also think a high percentage is word of mouth though as well with horror films. That's how I initially learned about it, and then I went to go and watch the trailer. So I think it's really important to build a large viral buzz surrounding your film.
I think that's why it's also important to have a clear storyline, or like a captivating storyline in the horror trailer as well, because if your audience don't particularly like being scared, you can appeal to them by how interested they are in the actual story,
Yeah.
and how the events in the horror film has happened to the characters.
Yeah, and if they're watching the film and they're not necessarily scared of a certain bit, they'll still come out enjoying the film and saying it's good, because although they didn't find it that scary, because some people won't find it that scary, certain films, they'll still say that they enjoyed it and talk about it.
Yeah, because in it, the backstories of the characters were also really, they stood out, and it wasn't just about a clown.
I also think there should be a strong focus on sound, especially non-diegetic sound, because if you have an effective soundtrack in the background, it could make the trailer a lot more tense and suspenseful.
I thought that the pace of the trailer was really good, and it made the trailer successful because it really drew me in, and because it was so fast paced, there was always something going on, but it also told you about the story as well, so it was sort of creating tension and really, it was making me really nervous about what was going to happen next. Yeah.
I thought the voiceover was really effective at the beginning because it sort of gave you subtle hints as to what the narrative was going to be during the film, and that made me really want to go see it because the narrative sounded really interesting.
I think it was really good how on the screen it came up with "Don't stray from the path."
Yeah,
Or
that stood out for me
stay
as
on
well.
the path, and I think that sort of like giving like the characters rules like that, and then seeing them break them makes us sort of think, oh, that person's in danger, or that it looks really scary for the situation that they're in, and it can make you want to go see it because you're like, how is it going to end up? How are they going to get out of that?
Yeah, it told us more than I expected it to tell me. Like, it kind of did. I feel like it told me too much, perhaps. But there's still gaps in the story that we don't know, which does. I do want to see the film now. I've watched the trailer, but I thought that the non-diegetic sound, and it's like a soundtrack mixed in with lots of mysterious sounds. That was really effective because it kind of confused me, but in a good way, because that scared me.
I think they made a good link to mental health issues as well. Like they said about the forest of suicide. That's quite common on social media and in the news recently, and I think they've made quite a good link to that. It is actually a sense of awareness as well.
I don't
I
remember
didn't
that.
see.
I do remember
I
it's
didn't
called
even
The
see
Forest.
Oh, the forest.
Did it tell you when the release date was?
I'm not
Oh,
sure,
you
but
did.
if it did, it didn't really stand out to me at
I
all.
feel like I haven't. I don't think you did. They must have done.
I feel like there was a good link between. It was obvious that it was called The Forest. Like, I know you said you couldn't really remember, but it's obvious now when I've told you that that's what it's called.
Yeah, like that's something I was.
So that's quite like that you need to have a title that stands out, but that also like you can show throughout your trailer.
The tent as well sticks in my mind because you camp in like a forest or a field, so that object is something quite memorable.
So is there anything that you think that they could have done better, or anything that wasn't quite successful in the trailer that you thought, oh, that they should have done that better?
I think they should have been more successful in displaying the name of the film and the release date. So maybe instead of putting it at the end, maybe put it through the middle and just maybe create a really harsh sound, so it's like you're very drawn to the screen and that's what you see, instead of sort of you being scared and then it fades and then you fade away and then they show you because you're like thinking about what's just scared you, instead of so you're sort of like thinking about that instead of looking at realising what the screen's telling you.
Linking to that, I think they should have used to display all of that bold and exaggerated colours.
Yeah.
So it does stand out more and it is more exaggerated, and this is the release date, you've got to come see this film.
So in the trailer, we hear one of the characters, Georgie, saying, "We all float down here," and the impact of that, it just his voice sort of increases and increases to the end, and then that's when you sort of see all the different clown shots, and it's sort of really scary because you hear the kid's voice. It's very like evil kind of sense that you get, and also in the trailer, I think. The fact that it was about 5 different characters, different children, they all have their own backstory, so it's quite interesting to see like how they all meet and how they all come together.
I thought that the trailer was very mysterious and brought a really strong sense of enigma. When I was watching it, I kind of knew what it was about, but there was bits that were untold, and that's what really kept me like wanting to go see it. And I think also because it was a film quite a few years ago, it's also quite appealing to bring it back in a new sort of way, and that stood out to people because when they've heard about it, they've recognised the name or thought, oh, I've seen the original one, and that's made them want to go see the other one.
A lot of people of even started watching the old ones again, even after watching the new one, just to link back to how it compares. And I think personally I have a fear of like darkness and dark places and clowns especially, and I think the sense of like being scared is actually quite exciting, and it's like, oh, actually sometimes you do want to make yourself scared just because you enjoy that sort of sensation it kind of gives in the cinema, and especially on like a big screen, it kind of impacts you a bit more.
I think also that the fact that in real life there was clown incidents where people would dress up and stand outside the roads in clown costumes. I think that also makes people see this film as like maybe a story as to what's been happening in real life and in the news and everything. So it might be more exciting to sort of see the film that has sort of happened to everyone in real life.
Especially with Halloween coming up as well.
Yeah.
Like, that was scary.
I think sometimes it's just nice to feel a bit of scare.